one from me, but it is about two fights. I suppose the big story is coming out, I suppose Thursday afternoon was we have two 27-year-old boxers, Conor Benn and Jake Paul. Both have similarities in terms of fighting old legends past their prime. Mike Tyson with Jake Paul and potentially Manny Pacquiao with Conor Benn. I suppose I just wanted to get your opinion on that. Would you say quite sad to see both fighters both coming out of retirement? Well, we don't know the full details of the Mike Tyson one or the Manny Pacquiao. Well,
Well, I can go.
Yeah,
Take one at a time. I'll take the
yeah,
Pacquiao Ben one first.
yeah,
Manny Pacquiao was wanted to fight ever since the day he walked off the stage from the Ugas loss.
yeah.
When he retired, and I think people forget this. Yes, he retired, but I never believed for a second that it was going to be for good. That retirement was, yeah, he lost to Ugas. He didn't get beat up in the Ugas fight. He lost the decision. It was competitive, but he clearly lost the fight. But that retirement was because he could not also maintain a position as an active professional boxer because he was about to launch a presidential campaign to try to become the president of the Philippines. So he lost the election, and then his Senate term expired. So now he doesn't have a job in politics. He's not president. He's no longer a senator. He didn't run for re-election. And so at that point, it's like, well, what else am I going to do with my life? He still felt like he had some fight left in him. You watch the videos when he trains, he still looks like tremendous condition and able to do a lot of things that he used to do. And I believe that he still, at this point in his career, can still beat some top guys. I'd like to see him retired. I mean, I don't really quite get the point. His legacy is secure. He's won, the titles in the weight class, has been the pound for pound king, has made hundreds of millions of dollars. How much of that he still has is anybody's guess. But obviously, anybody who gets offered a big amount of money to do a fight, he's down for it. Conor Benn's the perfect kind of opponent for him because, frankly, I don't think it's all that dangerous for him. I mean, Conor has not shown any punching power in the last couple of fights whatsoever. And, he's had his own issues to deal with. But if they can make that fight, I mean, I'm not telling you I think it's like the greatest fight ever in the world, but there's some interest in it. It will be a popular fight. I'm sure in the UK it would do big business. What that comes down to is just merely a matter of whether the Turkey Al Sheikh in Saudi Arabia decides that's a fight he wants to book and pay for. If he does, they'll put the fight on probably, probably sometime in the summer. If he doesn't, then it won't happen because I don't think there's any place else you can make the numbers work for the match to take place. So Manny and his advisor, Sean Gibbons, they got on the plane and went there to Saudi Arabia. Conor Benn was there. Obviously, Eddie Hearn was already there because he was involved with that card with Joshua. And they met. And, I guess there's no 100% yes or no, but they're hopeful that they'll get the deal done. But that's it. Manny's only been out of the ring a couple of years. It's a whole different story compared to Mike Tyson.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
So let's talk about Mike for a minute. Number one, the reason why they didn't announce that Jake Paul and Mike Tyson was a official boxing match. Yeah. They said it's a boxing match, but they knew there was going to be questions. Is it a real fight? Is it an exhibition fight?
I had this as well, yeah.
So they didn't announce yes or no to either of that. They didn't even announce the number of rounds of the fight. I inquired with the people at MVP, both Nakisa Bidarian as well as the PR team that sent out the announcement. Didn't receive a response. Finally did get a text response from Nakisa on Friday, who said they were still working through things, or that they announced what they wanted to announce, that there were more information forthcoming. Forget exactly what it said. The bottom line is they don't know. And the reason I know that they don't know is because when I spoke to the people in Texas, when I couldn't get a response from the MVP team about this event, I called people I know at the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. I've covered a lot of fights in Texas. I know people at the commission. So I called up one of the people I know there and I asked what was going on. And their response to me was simply that MVP has, in fact, put in an official date request to hold a boxing event at the AT&T Stadium on July 20th. But other than that, there's nothing specific. That, yes, the person had seen the reports in the media that it was going to be Mike Tyson against Jake Paul, but they don't have to, MVP does not have to supply that regulator office with a bout, a lineup of their bouts. They've got up until 21 days before the fight. So they've got no official notification of the match. And so when it comes to like a licensing, let's say they wanted to make it a real fight, they haven't ever tried yet to go to Texas to get Tyson a license. Yeah. Now, Jake Paul getting a license in Texas, no problem, right? He fought there last year against Nate Diaz. He's 27 years old, physically strong, healthy, whatever. Not an issue getting a boxing license. Tyson hasn't fought for 20 years, had an exhibition 4 years ago against Roy Jones. been retired a long time. And I think people forget this. This is not Mike Tyson of 1987 or 86 or 88 or 89, like pre-Buster. This isn't even the guy that was knocking out guys like Razor Ruddock and, Peter McNeely after prison and Bruce Seldon and all Frank Bruno in the rematch and all that. We're talking about a guy that at the end of his career got knocked out in 3 of his last 4 fights. Okay, fine. One was against Lennox Lewis for the heavyweight championship, but the other 2 were against journeyman opponents, Danny Williams and Kevin McBride. That's the Tyson. That's the newest Tyson that people have seen. And he quit against those guys. And 20 years later, it's not getting better. He's 57 years old. He'll be 58 years old if this fight takes, or, when the fight takes place. Jake Paul is 30 years younger than him. I was just looking at some of the dates of Tyson's career. On the day that they announced the fight between him and Jake Paul, it was the 37th anniversary of when Mike Tyson had defeated Bone Crusher Smith to retain the WBC and the WBA heavyweight titles, which means that Jake Paul was still 10 years from being born at that point. A couple of days before that was the 39th anniversary of Mike Tyson's pro debut. So you're talking about a guy who would be in the ring with a 27-year-old physically strong man 40 years after Mike made his professional debut. That's not normal. That does not compute. 57-year-old men or 58-year-old men are not supposed to be in a boxing ring. And if they are, they sure as hell shouldn't be fighting a guy that's 27. So I'm not hating on the fight. If it happens, it's a huge event. I just hope that it's not going to wind up being an actual official fight, because that's just not good for anybody, in my opinion. Doesn't do anything for Tyson. Doesn't really do anything for Jake Paul. He is what he is. He claims he wants to be a future world champion and wants to do things to develop himself, which is why he's fought the sort of lower level professional boxers in his recent 2 fights, because he's trying to build himself up and hone his skills. So I don't think, fighting Tyson doesn't help that, in my opinion. So it's going to be a huge event. The big thing about it that excites me is that Netflix is involved. That's another platform that potentially, if they enjoy their experience with this, if it does well for them, etc., maybe they get the bug a little bit. Maybe they'll want to do some other boxing, not necessarily this kind of fight, but that I assume when Tyson and Jake have their match, they're going to have some real boxing matches on the undercard. Maybe they'll be turned on a little bit by that, and maybe want to put a small amount, even just a small amount, to do like a series, something to have another platform in the business to do with fights, because we need that in this sport. But so Jake Paul and Tyson, it's a huge event, but I have my very serious doubts that it's going to be an actual official real fight. I sure hope it isn't.
Absolutely. And Dan, just before this the meeting runs out, there's been so much news on the American side of the river. And I suppose you've been the man that's been covering it all. So we do have to give a plug to the news that ran the podcast of yourself. So before we do end this interview, if you feel free to plug where we can find you. Obviously, all links in the description, but if you just want to say it now, so
I appreciate it. It's danrafael.substack.com, my newsletter. You sign up with your email, you get all the blasts of my posts. As I like to say, Lewis, you don't have to go searching for the boxing news and commentary. It comes right to you. And I'm publishing pretty much every day. Writing stuff on the Joshua and Nagano card and everything else under the sun. It was a busy day, like you mentioned today, with Jake Paul and Tyson and the Manny Pacquiao, Conor Benn stuff, the Canelo business, plus the big heavyweight fights that we had. So it's been busy, but it's been a labor of love.
Absolutely, Dan. I do appreciate you. It's I suppose it's late for me and it's late for you as well. So I do appreciate you taking time to speak to me, mate. And all the best. Hopefully, be catching up soon, mate. Top man.
You bet, Lewis. Thanks, sir.